Hi everybody and welcome to this week's video. I'm really excited about this one because we're gonna be talking about my favorite hobby. He's very tired, it's time for his nap. This is one stack, there's more, and I'm not gonna try and pick them all up at once because that would be toxic of me. I love to read and it is in the way that I like to go to cafes in a cute outfit, bring out my book, order a coffee, go like this with my hair, go like this. That's exactly the way that I love books. And you know what, I can admit that because we're all adults here. What you may not know about me, which you don't know anything about me. Hi, my name is Katie. Welcome to my channel. I am moving to London next month, so if that's something that you're interested in seeing about, if you love books and travel and film school, because that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing with my life for the next year and a half. Crazy. Moving to London, what? You should subscribe because I'm pretty cool. Also, Lisa says to have fun. I don't make the rules, she does. If you know, you know. But what you guys may not know about me is that I really kind of hated reading in high school. What I mean by this, so when I was a kid, I ate books. I was that kid, I would read shelves of books. And so in high school, I was in all of the higher level reading classes. I took AP Lit, AP Lang, Honors English, all that kind of stuff. And then when I got to college, I actually became an English minor with a concentration in creative writing. We were writing so many papers and it becomes this very scientific experience. And I understand why they have to teach it that way because you need to be able to analyze text and pull out themes and tone. But it just became a point where I felt like I was dissecting books like a biology frog. I hated biology. I hated it so much. And actually, I really did have to do that one time to dissect a frog. I had a partner named Sylvia. Shout out to you, Sylvia. She was such a queen and she dissected the whole frog while I just sat there and screeched. And God bless you, Sylvia. Because reading was turned into this very dissectable thing, I just kind of grew a distaste for it because the way that I love to read is I like staying up late at night and finishing a book all in one sitting. I started this book a couple nights ago and I literally read half of it in one night because that's just the way that I like to read. I like to section it off in my own ways. I don't like annotating. About 2 years ago, I came to the conclusion that I was an English major, but there were so many classic books out there. You're so good, you are. I came to the conclusion 2 years ago that there were so many classic books that I hadn't read yet that I really wanted to, I don't know, be in on the hype. But the book that started me on my classic journey was this book, The Catcher in the Rye, and I actually made a vlog. You can go back to the week that I first read this book. I was reading Catcher in the Rye and another YouTuber was commenting and asking me how I liked it and she did not like it at all and got into reading. And I finished this book in a day and a half. And I actually brought this on a plane. A plane is a really good setting to really get into a book, I think, because it's sort of you have no distractions. Bringing a book is always just kind of a chill way to detach and entertain myself and be that mysterious girl in the airport. She's reading a book? No, she's reading a classic book. She's reading Salinger. There was something so wonderful to me about the experience of reading this book, and I'm gonna tell you exactly why. I had heard only mixed reviews of this book. My brother read it in high school and he loved it, and then I heard other people who read it in high school and they loathed it. And if you guys don't know, this book was banned for a really, really long time, and it's oh, a banned book? Give it to me right now. Any book that's controversial or semi causes a stir, I want to get my hands on it, and that's just the God's honest truth. There was something so wonderful about the experience of reading this book, and that it was that there were all these polarizing opinions about it that I had heard. I didn't know what this book was about at all. For some reason, I had just avoided spoilers for this book that's literally so famous. There were no reviews that I read, no book talk stuff, which I love book talk, but this was pre all of that. I just found a book, I picked it up, and my thoughts on it were completely for me. They were completely my own to make up and consider, really read the prose and just dig into it without any influence. In today's day and age, everything is influenced, or sometimes the internet just gives us big group think brain. So the internet is great for some things, but then for others, I'm literally on the internet right now. This is so meta. But then there are some times when I'm on the internet for too long and there's so much noise that picking up a book really helps me cut it all down. I ended up absolutely loving this book. It is still, to this day, one of my favorite reads. If you don't know anything about this book, don't look anything up and just read it, just pick it up. And if you hate it or you love it, that's completely up to you. And I think that's just like the magic of reading. Now, I thought that I would do like a little book tour because I like a little book tour. Right? The way that I get all of my books is Free Little Libraries is a great option. And I read a very like wide range of books, but like people always talk about actually getting into reading. Get into reading first before you get into classics, I would say, because classics are a little bit more work than like a regular like off-the-shelf book. Always my genre of choice is like, I mean, honestly, I loved like all like fantasy books when I was a kid. Like that's what got me into it. Like I read every single fairy tale. I read Twilight, I read Harry Potter, I read like Divergent, Hunger Games, like all of those like reads when I was younger. And then I got really into thrillers when I got older. Like I love a Ruth Ware book or like a Lisa Jewell. So when you're starting with a classic, maybe pick one in a genre that interests you to begin with. My family goes up to Maine every year, and not every year, like, well, we go up to Maine a lot. They have so many used bookstores that are so good, and they're filled with classics that you can buy for like $1, $2, 50 cents. And that is how I've built up this collection. Like I am not out here spending $15 on a book. Like I honestly, a lot of these I got from Free Little Libraries and from these little bookstores. And you support a local business, you know, people donate their books to these stores, and a lot of the times the classic sections are like no one's really in there because people have read all of them already. And so I go in there and I buy so many books. If you've never read a classic book before, 1984 is a really great book to start with because it's a pretty straightforward read. Because sometimes with like old classic books, like they will just start you sort of right in the middle of action, and they'll have all these names and use them interchangeably, and it can get a little bit confusing. I feel like this one is a really good one to start off with because it's pretty straightforward, but it introduces themes like of utopia. But this book is about a society where Big Brother is always watching, and there's all these normal human things that are outlawed and not allowed, and it's all about free thinking. And I think it's a really good introduction into the importance of books, and it introduces like, I love classic books because they introduce like existential questions in a way that feels like fantastic. They have messages. All of these books that are like older, there are some things that are dated and you are gonna read them in like from a lens of the 21st century that we're in, but they all have lessons that can be sort of like timelessly applied to your life. So I definitely recommend this one as a starter. And then my probably second favorite classic book of all time, and I don't have a copy anymore. I left my copy, I think I left it in Portugal. Yeah, I think I left it in Portugal because I couldn't fit it in my suitcase. But Wuthering Heights. I loved Wuthering Heights so much. I ate this book up. Okay, so I have also read Jane Eyre, which is by Charlotte Bronte, but her sister Emily Bronte wrote Wuthering Heights, and it is such a fantastic book. I was obsessed with it, and I need to get another copy because I want to reread it. Like that's how much I absolutely loved it. It's a great book if you like love the genre of romance. Like it just really dives into like a really dramatic story, and I think that is like fantastic. Catcher in the Rye, I think this is a great one also. I was literally just talking about it, but it's such a controversial book that you are gonna have an opinion about it. So I actually just finished this one, and it was East of Eden by John Steinbeck. And this one is like sheet thick. It goes across familial generations in this valley of California, and it discusses themes that come from the Bible, but in a, not modern because it's not modern anymore, but in a, you know, when does this take place? This takes place in like, it's like the Civil War to like the 1950s, I believe. It has really compelling characters. And again, this is one of those books where like some of it you do have to take with a grain of salt because like the way that Steinbeck writes about women, like he did not have a great experience with them. The woman character in this book is like an irredeemable, like evil character, but it is just a very interesting story. So I definitely recommend checking it out. Okay, so I just finished reading this book and I got this one for free. Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. This is a book that I have like literally never seen discussed on Book Talk. I picked it up because I knew that I had heard the title before, but then I Googled it and I realized that it was like banned in a bunch of countries. And so it's basically a book where people do not have emotions, like pretty much, like if you're not kind of like a sociopath, like in this society, you are ostracized, and it goes into the deconstructing of like human experience. And it was one of the most interesting reads that I've read in a while. First half of this book, I was confused. It's a jarring read, it's upsetting, and there are parts of it that don't really hold up to today. But I don't think it's fair to like completely write off a book if it doesn't fit in with what we know and believe in our culture today. Like I think that all of these things still can have value to read. It literally says provocative on the back, and this book is provocative, and it made me think. I do recommend this book. I loved Jane Eyre. Again, a fabulous just romantic story, and a story about being a woman in this time period. And these two sisters really pushed the boundaries on what was being written about the female experience. So I just think that this is a great one. The seventh book that I would recommend for you all is Mrs. Dalloway. I don't have a copy of it, but this is one of my favorite books that I've read. The prose is so beautiful. It is just the most vibrant story that discusses womanhood. It's by Virginia Woolf. I have not read any other Virginia Woolf, and I left my copy in Portugal. It's a short read. You can get through it pretty fast. But then literally I have so many books that are on my to be read list, but these are the ones that I have read. In Cold Blood, Truman Capote. This is like one of the first ones that I read, and it was a fantastic read. Hard to read, but again, like a genre defining book, I would say, at the time that it was written, because it's from the perspective pretty much of the villains, and it's, yeah. Oscar Wilde, Picture of Dorian Gray. If you like art, if you like the ideas of aesthetics and what they mean in society, this is a very interesting book to pick up. These are all very interesting, that's what I keep saying, but it's the only word I can think of. Farewell to Arms, beautiful prose. It's the only Ernest Hemingway book that I've read. I'm sure he has other ones, but it's set in Italy, so just the picture that he paints of Italy it's stunning. I mean, I read this in the fall time. It's a sad story, and then this is probably one of those books, which a lot of the times with classics, like you're sort of getting through, you're wondering how this is gonna wrap up, and then for me, this is one of those books that the ending really made it. So you have to kind of stick in there, and I think if you really hate a book, I am of the belief that you should just give up and move on, because your time is worthy of spending and doing something that you like. There are also books that like I'm kind of iffy about when I'm first starting to read them, and when you get to the end of them, it clicks, and that was definitely this book. And then I also read Breakfast at Tiffany's from Truman Capote. This one didn't really stick with me the way that, I've seen the movie as well. It didn't really stick with me the way that In Cold Blood stuck with me. Yeah, I don't know if I would recommend this book, because genuinely I don't even remember reading it.
J-Lo?
I don't know.
Die kenne ich nicht. Oops.
I'm sure it's good. That's also like part of the fun of reading a classic book, is you can kind of be like, you can like read these like these classic books to filth. You can just be like, you know what, it was okay. Like just like this like classic revered novel that like everyone's like for centuries has been like, you should read this. You can just be like, wasn't that good? Franny and Zoe, I loved this one as well. Catcher in the Rye, still my favorite, but I really like anything written by Salinger. Read this book, The Time Machine, when I was in Edinburgh by H.G. Wells. And this is supposed to be like, he's like the first guy who wrote like a science fiction novel we can get into, but then I saw this TikTok, which literally I'm like, get online, read books. I'm like, oh, my opinion, this came from TikTok. I'm a hypocrite. But I now have on my list Mary Shelley Frankenstein, because that was really like the first science fiction, but this guy gets like the credit, which no hate to this guy. Like, I don't think that he meant to do that to Mary Shelley. This book was weird. This book was really weird. That's all I remember from it, to be honest with you. Like, some of these books have stuff that like stick with them, but then like that one, I'm just like, that one was really weird. Oh, I do have a copy of The Christmas Carol. And I bought this in Ireland for like probably $1. And it's from like, when is this book from? This book was, okay, I bought it for £5. Just kidding, it was not $1. This book is from 1843 and I got it for £5. I'm obsessed with owning a copy like this. Like, if you just like really look at that, like the binding of that book, that's not exciting to people from Europe. Like, there's literally books like this, like literally scattered around in piles. But as an American, this was an extremely exciting find, and I love The Christmas Carol. I love Christmas stories. It's honestly how I sort of got into Truman Capote, because I read this book. I bought this one because I love Christmas stories, and I bought this in Edinburgh. There's a story in here by Truman Capote, and I absolutely loved it. Oh, it's called A Christmas Memory. And then honestly, that's all the ones that I've read so far. So I've made a pretty good dent, but that has taken me like 2 years. So, and I've been reading other books in between. Like, that's not all the books that I've read in 3 years, but it's all of the like classic ones that I've read. But right now I'm reading Farenheight 451. I've never read Ray Bradbury before, and I really like this one. I have stayed up reading it. It's actually pretty short. It's like probably like this much. The rest of this is like commentary about the book. So if you're really intimidated by like really long classic books, you can start with something like this that's honestly pretty short and easy to get through. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you made it to the end of this video, this one was really just for me and a couple of you cookie kids watching that like to read as well. I hope you have a great day, and subscribe because I post new videos every Friday. Hope you guys have an excellent day. Peace and blessings.